We live in interesting times. For the headlines.
Closed deposition.
A U.S. ambassador ousted by President Donald Trump tells a riveting impeachment hearing she felt intimidated by the president after he launched an extraordinary real-time attack midway through her testimony to Congress. Government supporters took to the streets of downtown Hong Kong on Saturday after a chaotic working week saw hardcore pro-democracy activists cause widespread disruption in the city and stretch police resources. President Duterte will visit Busan, South Korea this month to attend the ASEAN Republic of Korea Commemorative Summit. And we'll take you skydiving as Eagle News correspondent Michael Hudson takes the leap. I'm Alma Angeles, wherever you're watching from around the world. Thank you very much for joining us, and now to the news. Republicans and Democrats sparred again in the second public impeachment hearing. A U.S. ambassador ousted by President Trump told an impeachment hearing that she felt intimidated by the president. The 33-year-old diplomatic veteran, Marie Yovanovitch, spoke in personal terms about how she was subjected to a painful smear campaign before being abruptly pulled from Kiev. Let's listen in and let's hear the highlights of this impeachment hearing.
Closed deposition, I expressed grave concerns about the degradation of the Foreign Service over the past few years and the failure of State Department leadership to push back as foreign and corrupt interests apparently hijacked our Ukraine policy. I remain disappointed that the department's leadership and others have declined to acknowledge that the attacks against me and others are dangerously wrong.
Ambassador Yovanovitch, as we sit here testifying, the President is attacking you on Twitter, and I'd like to give you a chance to respond. I'll read part of one of his tweets. Everywhere Marie Yovanovitch went turned bad. But would you like to respond to the President's attack that everywhere you went turned bad?
Well, I don't think I have such powers, not in Mogadishu, Somalia, and not in other places. I actually think that where I've served over the years, I and others have demonstrably made things better, for the U.S. as well as for the countries that I've served in.
And now the President in real time is attacking you. What effect do you think that has on other witnesses' willingness to come forward and expose wrongdoing?
Well, it's very intimidating.
Shifting gears to corruption in Ukraine, in your powerful deposition, you described, quote, "We have long understood that strong anti-corruption efforts must form an essential part of our policy in Ukraine, and now there is a window of opportunity to do that. And so why is this important, and why is this important to us? Put simply, anti-corruption efforts serve Ukraine's interests, but they also serve ours as well." Is that still your testimony?
Yes.
But let's take a step back. The first time you personally became aware of Burisma was actually when you were being prepared by the Obama State Department for your Senate confirmation hearings. And this was in the form of practice questions and answers. This was your deposition. And you testified that in this particular practice Q&A with the Obama State Department, it wasn't just generally about Burisma and corruption, it was specifically about Hunter Biden and Burisma. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And the exact quote from your testimony, Ambassador, is, quote, "The way the question was phrased in this model Q&A was, what can you tell us about Hunter Biden's, being named to the board of Burisma?" So for the millions of Americans watching, President Obama's own State Department was so concerned about potential conflicts of interest from Hunter Biden's role at Burisma that they raised it themselves while prepping this wonderful ambassador nominee before her confirmation. And yet our Democratic colleagues and the chairman of this committee cry foul when we dare ask that same question that the Obama State Department was so concerned about. But we will continue asking it. And lastly, in my 20 seconds left, I just want to get it on record. In terms of defensive lethal aid, which you were an advocate for, that was not provided by President Obama. It was provided by President Trump.
That's correct.
I yield back 5 seconds.
You understood from Deputy Assistant Secretary George Kent's testimony, as it's been related to you, that he testified a few days ago. Do you understand that that arrangement, Hunter Biden's role on the Burisma board, caused him enough concern that, as he testified in his statement, that in February of 2015, I raised my concern that Hunter Biden's status as a board member could create the perception of a conflict of interest. And he went on to talk about the vice president's responsibilities over the Ukrainian policy as one of those factors. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah.
That it was a legitimate concern to raise?
I think that it could raise the appearance of a conflict of interest.
But the legitimate concern about Hunter Biden's role was legitimate, correct?
I think it creates a concern that there could be an appearance of conflict
Well, based on
of
your
interest.
testimony, Ambassador, I'd like to renew my request, Mr. Chairman, that Hunter Biden's testimony that has been
Time of the gentleman has expired.
requested by the Republicans be considered
The gentleman has expired.
as
Mr.
legitimate
Hecht,
rather than as a sham, as the
Gentleman will
has been
suspend.
referred to
Gentleman will
by the
suspend.
chairman.
Your time has
I
expired.
have a unanimous.
Mr. Heck,
I have a
you're
unanimous
recognized.
consent request.
You're not recognized. Mr. Heck, you are.
Ambassador, I don't really have very many questions.
Meanwhile, Republicans zeroed in on whether Ambassador Yovanovitch had first-hand knowledge of key events. Let's listen in again.
Ambassador, I don't really have very many questions for you. You admitted in your opening statement that you don't have any first-hand knowledge of the issues that we're looking into. Do you believe that Senator Grassley is a serious and credible elected official?
I have no reason to think otherwise.
Were you involved in the July 25th Trump-Zelensky phone call or preparations for the call?
No, I was not.
Were you involved in the deliberations about the pause in military sales to Ukraine as the Trump administration reviewed newly elected President Zelensky's commitment to corruption reforms?
For the delay in
For the pause.
the pause? No, I was not.
Were you involved in the proposed Trump-Zelensky, later Pence-Zelensky meetings in Warsaw, Poland on September 1st?
No, I was not.
Did you ever talk to President Trump in 2019?
No, I have not.
Mick Mulvaney?
No, I have not.
Thank you, Ambassador. I'm not exactly sure what the ambassador is doing here today. This is the House Intelligence Committee that's now turned into the House Impeachment Committee. This seems more appropriate for the Subcommittee on Human Resources at the Foreign Affairs Committee. If there's issues with employment, disagreements with the administration, it would seem like this would be a more appropriate setting instead of an impeachment hearing where the ambassador is not a material fact witness to any of the accusations that are being hurled at the president for this impeachment inquiry. I have several questions I think Mr. Castor wants to get to. I know, Ms. Stefanik, you had a few quick questions for the ambassador. I'll yield to you, Ms. Stefanik.
Thank you, Mr. Nunes. Ambassador Yovanovitch, thank you for being here today.
The gentlewoman will suspend.
What is the interruption for this time? It is our time.
The gentlewoman will suspend. You're not recognized. Mr. Nunes, you are minority counsel.
I just recognized.
Under the House Resolution 660, you're not allowed to yield time except to minority counsel.
The ranking member yielded time to another member of Congress.
No, that is not accurate.
You're gagging the young
That is
lady from
accurate.
New York?
Ambassador Yovanovitch, I want to thank you for being
Gentlewoman
here
will
today.
suspend. You're not recognized.
I'll tell you about what tampering is.
Now, the Democrats are accusing the president earlier of tweet intimidation. Here's the president's response.
About what tampering is. Tampering is when a guy like Shifty Schiff doesn't let us have lawyers. Tampering is when Schiff doesn't let us have witnesses, doesn't let us speak. I've been watching today. For the first time, I started watching, and it's really sad when you see people not allowed to ask questions. It's totally, nobody's ever had such horrible due process. There was no due process. And I think it's considered a joke all over Washington and all over the world. The Republicans are given no due process whatsoever. We're not allowed to do anything. It's a disgrace what's happening. But you know what? The American public understands it, and that's why the poll numbers are so good. And like it. In the history of our country, there has never been a disgrace like what's going on right now. So you know what? I have the right to speak. I have freedom of speech, just as other people do. But they've taken away the Republicans' rights. And I watched today as certain very talented people wanted to ask questions, and they weren't even allowed to ask questions. Republicans, they weren't allowed to ask questions. It's a very sad.
And as millions of Americans follow the impeachment inquiry into President Trump, several bars in Washington, D.C. are opening early for residents to come watch the live hearings around food, and residents of D.C. gave their take on this historic hearings. Take a listen.
Honestly, I don't think it'll change much unless he does get removed from office. I think his basic supporters are still there. They are being gaslighted 24/7 by him, so I think honestly it's just going to make them stronger, if anything, sadly. I went to another place on Wednesday to watch it as well, and you know, it's everyone's loving it because you do get to go out and actually see it happening on TV, which, you know, half the stuff we see on Capitol Hill doesn't happen live. So I think everybody's, you know, there are quite a few people here, and I think they're all enjoying it as well.
I hope that over the course of the next few weeks and months, the public opinion will shift to see that there is reason for, you know, actually holding these hearings. And so I'm excited for the public to know what exactly is going on. Also, you know, people like me are kind of already very interested in politics, but more for the general public, will they be able to digest the information in a more accessible way?
America's kind of the reality television country, and this is how we conduct our government. It's transparent, it's a spectacle, but it hopefully is, at the end of the day, a good process still.
Five supporters of former President Evo Morales were killed on Friday in violent clashes between protesters and security forces in Bolivia, according to an AFP correspondent who saw the bodies at a hospital. Take a look. Authorities did not report any deaths in the riots outside Cochabamba, though it said 100 people were detained. Media reports said 8 were wounded. Clashes had broken out Friday in the suburbs of Cochabamba, where thousands of coca growers were trying to reach the city center 11 miles away to join a protest against interim leader Jeanine Áñez, but they were blocked by police, who stopped them from crossing a bridge. The protesters carried weapons, guns, Molotov cocktails, homemade bazookas, and explosive devices, according to Cochabamba Police Commander Colonel Jamie Zurita. The crowd was dispersed after dark by riot police who were supported by the army and a helicopter. Morales resigned and fled to Mexico after losing the support of Bolivia's security forces following weeks of protests over his disputed October 20 re-election. With the 5 protesters killed on Friday, the death toll from the unrest rises to 15, with more than 400 wounded. Meanwhile, Bolivia's interim leader, Janine Áñez, said that exiled ex-President Evo Morales would have to answer to justice if he returns, as 5 of his supporters were killed in fierce clashes with security forces. Morales resigned and fled to Mexico after losing the support of the security forces following weeks of protests over his disputed re-election. The former president has said he was willing to return to bring peace to Bolivia. Áñez, 52, was deputy Senate Speaker before taking over the top job to avoid a power vacuum, a move endorsed by the Constitutional Court.
Y lo más manipulador que está haciendo ahora el expresidente Morales es querer convencer a la comunidad internacional que se trató de un golpe, cuando el golpe lo hemos sufrido los bolivianos en muchas oportunidades. El país ahora demanda paz, el país ahora demanda elecciones justas, transparentes, y este gobierno de transición ha hecho ese compromiso.
Now, Chile, it said it will hold a referendum to replace the country's dictatorship-era constitution, a key demand of protesters after nearly a month of violent civil unrest. The announcement sent the stock market soaring over 8%, the biggest daily rise in a decade, and sparked a recovery by the peso, which was up 3.2%. Lawmakers in Chile's National Congress agreed early Friday to hold the plebiscite in April of 2020 after hours of intense negotiations between the governing coalition and opposition parties. The current charter, in force since 1980 and enacted by the former military junta of Augusto Pinochet, has been changed numerous times in the years since, but it doesn't establish the state's responsibility to provide education and health care, two demands made by the millions of Chileans who have taken to the streets. A male student on his 16th birthday at a high school in Santa Clarita shot 5 students, killing a 16-year-old girl and a 14-year-old boy, and then himself. We have a report coming in from EBC's Eva Basalyay.
At around 7:30 a.m. on Thursday, a 16-year-old male Saugus High School student opened fire on the campus, injuring 5 students before shooting himself in the head with the last bullet of his .45 semi-auto pistol.
Well, I was waiting outside of school before second period along with all the other classmates. That's mainly when everyone waits out there because it was close to 7:40, and not a lot of kids have a first period, so literally most of the school was out there for second. I was out by the tables next to the quad where the shooting happened, and at first the first gunshot at the time we all thought was like a balloon popping, so we didn't think anything of it, so we looked over to the area where it came from, and then there was a kid running towards us, and we were like a little confused, and then less than 5 seconds later we heard 3 more gunshots, so everyone around me just dropped their stuff and we all ran out to the parking lot.
The shooter was brought to the hospital and listed in grave condition. Of the 5 victims hospitalized, one 16-year-old female and one 14-year-old male died later from their injuries.
I can't put it into words, and I know how these other parents must feel because I'm feeling like this and mine are safe. And I don't have anything to worry about tonight. I worry about tomorrow, and I worry about all the days that follow, and it's horrible to say, but I don't want to be them. I don't want to be put in that situation. I feel so horrible for all of the children that had to see their friends go through this. Every single student at this school, whether they were there or not, are affected by this.
Feel helpless. I mean, I'm just sitting there all day long watching the news, you know, looking at Facebook, see all the posts and stuff like that, see how everybody was all upset and wanting to know, do you know where your kid is? You know, any word, you know, and just all day long just sitting there waiting for somebody to say something. It was a tough day.
We've been following it on the news all day, and we just had to bring our energy over here as much as we can because it keeps getting closer and closer to home.
Yeah, no direct ties other than feeling like we're an extended community of here, of everywhere, yeah.
I can't imagine what these families are going through and what the families from all the other school shootings have gone through, and it just gives me the chills, and it makes me terrified and worried at all times.
Well, it's obviously had a huge impact on the community. It's a fairly close-knit community to begin with, and so it's really struck a chord here. My daughter is a senior at another high school in the area, and her high school was on lockdown for the morning. So she was shaken by that. So I came home from work, and we've spent the rest of the day just together trying to process what was happening.
Brought together by a tragic act, the community draws strength from each other as they try to make sense of the violence that struck their neighborhood.
Know anything about Santa Clarita in this area? We've been going through a lot with all the fires for over the last few years. We've had some friends affected by it, and we find that we all just come together and we're there to help and support them.
Together we stand, divided we fall. We will stay together. This is a community because of the people that make it. It's not a community based upon geographical location. It's a community based on the fact that we are of the same mind, the same heart, the same soul, and we will overcome.
That our support is that we love them. We love them. We're sorry for what happened, and we're hoping that all these kids that went through what they went through today and are strong enough and keep fighting for what they believe, and they have a lot of people behind them to stop this nonsense with gun violence.
This community is very resilient. I mean, just a few weeks ago, several weeks ago, it was struck by wildfires. The community came together to support each other at that point when people were losing their homes, and really supporting the responders, the firefighters and others who helped to address that situation. This community has gone through a lot, and it's going to continue to be resilient and bounce back.
Saugus is we move forward. Like, we take what happens and we learn from it and we move forward. And like I had said previously, it definitely brought us closer. So we're all going to use each other's strengths to help us through it and understand the situation and help each other out. But we're a very bounce back community. So we're going to take everything that happens and just move forward from it, recognize what happened, and try and prevent anything else from happening like this again.
As the chill of night descends on the city, residents are undoubtedly keeping watch over their families, hopeful that the warmth of a new day will also bring with it the promise of healing. In Saugus, California, Eva Basalyaje, Eagle News, 1/25.
Thank you, Eva. Government supporters took to the streets of downtown Hong Kong on Saturday after a chaotic working week saw hardcore pro-democracy activists cause widespread disruption in the city and stretch police resources. Take a look.
But what I see on the street in Central every day is violence and vandalism by these black-clad hooligans. And they've gone from demonstration to protest to riots, to anarchy, now to terrorism. I'm in favor of normal democratic process. And so if you want democracy, you've got to be peaceful. You can't have democracy through violence.
And show support to the police to get Hong Kong back to normal. There are obviously some issues, but it can't be done through violence. That is the point. It cannot be done through violence. It has to be peaceful dialogue.
A Blossom Everywhere campaign of roadblocks and vandalism across the semi-autonomous financial hub shut down large chunks of the train network and forced schools and shopping malls to close. Now, on Saturday morning, a group of around 500 people, mostly middle-aged and senior citizens, rallied outside the Hong Kong government's headquarters to show support for the police, who have been heavily criticized over their handling of the crisis. Waving Chinese national flags and posters, they chanted slogans including "Support police to enforce law solemnly" and "Hong Kong cockroaches, trash of our times," mocking one of the democracy movement's major slogans, "Reclaim Hong Kong, revolution of our times." The demonstrators took photos with the station riot police and gave them thumbs-up signs. The mayor of Venice, Luigi Brugnaro, announced the opening of an account for people in Italy and around the world who want to contribute to the repair of the historic city after a series of devastating high tides or aqua altas. Take a look.
I think it's a good thing. This is, a very beautiful city. It's very known internationally, with a lot of historic buildings, and I think that it's worth saving. And, all these type of cities, pretty sure this is going to cost a lot of money. So I don't think it's a bad thing about, asking maybe tourists in other countries if they can help out.
Sì, io sarei anche disposta a dare un aiuto, anche perché, ripeto, da un punto di vista turistico, parlo poi in prima persona, anche è un peccato non vedere questi luoghi, quindi sì, la gente secondo me il sindaco deve incentivare, appunto.
Meanwhile, Venice is on red alert for more floods and fierce winds on Saturday after an exceptionally high tide swamped the city of Canals, where the authorities have declared a state of emergency. Mayor Luigi Brugnaro ordered the iconic St. Mark's Square closed on Friday as the latest sea surge struck with strong storms and winds battering the region. It reached a height of 5 feet just before midday, lower than Tuesday's peak, but still dangerous. Brugnaro said, quote, "I'm forced to close the square to avoid health risks for citizens, a disaster." In the afternoon, the square reopened as water levels receded. But civil protection authorities issued a weather red alert for the Venice region on Saturday, warning of violent winds. Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte declared a state of emergency for the city on Thursday. Residents whose houses have been hit are eligible for up to 5,000 euros in immediate government aid, while restaurant and shop owners can receive up to 20,000 euros and apply for more later. In other news, an Australian wildlife ranger recounts his terrifying escape from the clutches of a particularly cunning crocodile after wrestling with the reptile and sticking a finger in its eye. Craig Dickman, who made a split-second decision to go fishing last Sunday in a remote part of northern Australia known as Croc Country last Sunday, said a 9-foot crocodile came up from behind him as he was leaving the beach. Take a look.
Ranger Craig Dickman was trying to decide how to spend a day off when he made a fateful decision. The fish weren't biting, something more menacing was. The 2.8-metre beast sunk its jaws into his thigh. It attacked again, grabbing his wrist and trying to drag him into the water. He's certainly given up fishing for now.
Or should I go fishing? So I decided to go fishing. Reeling in, and as I've turned to go, I've turned to the left to go, and the first thing I see is this croc's head just come at me. It's jumped and snapped, and that noise will haunt me forever. I think the snap of its jaws. Putting my thumb in its eye socket, these things are bulletproof, and there's no weakness. At that time it decided to roll, do the death roll. So it rolled, and as it's rolled, fortunately it hadn't grabbed any bone, it only grabbed soft tissue. Rolled over on top of the thing and pinned its jaws together. And then I think both the croc and I had a moment where we're going, well, what do we do now?
Eagle News, we'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Net25 shows live and on demand anytime, anywhere, on any mobile device on OSN Play.
The wife of 61 years of the late industrialist John Gokongwei Jr. died on Saturday, November 16, just a day after he was laid to rest. This was confirmed by the Gokongwei children, Robina, Lance, Lisa, Faith, Hope, and Marcia. Elizabeth was born on February 9, 1934. Wake details are private to be shared with family and friends, according to the children. John Gokongwei Jr., whose rags to riches story has inspired many Filipino entrepreneurs, died on November 9 at the Manila Doctors Hospital. He left behind an empire that straddled retail, property, banking, telecommunications, food, petrochemicals, hospitality, media, and air transportation. The patriarch had passed on the helm of his diverse businesses to his children many years ago. Lance is Chief Executive Officer of Cebu Pacific, while his sister Robina Gokongwei Pe oversees the retail side as CEO of Robinson's Retail. Their sister Lisa Gokongwei Cheng heads Summit Media. Gokongwei has consistently landed on Forbes' list of the Philippines' richest men. In the latest listing, he was ranked third richest. His estimated net worth is $5.8 billion. When he turned 80, he donated half of his shares in JG Summit, estimated at $20 billion or $20 billion pesos then, to the Family Foundation, saying he wanted to give back to people after being blessed so much. President Duterte will visit Busan, South Korea this month to attend the ASEAN Republic of Korea Commemorative Summit, according to presidential spokesman and Chief Presidential Legal Counsel Salvador Panelo. In a radio interview, Panelo confirmed the president's attendance to the summit scheduled on November 25 and 26 to celebrate the 30th anniversary of ASEAN-ROK Dialogue Partnership. Panelo also said that it is most likely that the president will have a bilateral meeting with South Korean President Moon Jae-in during his visit. He said the two leaders would discuss issues of mutual interest, including trade and security. Now, this would be the president's second visit to Korea since assuming office. The chief executive's visit also comes at a time when the government is working on a free trade deal with South Korea. Despite the negotiators being engaged in a deadlock over certain provisions of the deal, the government remains hopeful that the talks will still be concluded by the end of the month. If signed, the free trade agreement with South Korea will only be the country's second bilateral trade deal after the Philippines-Japan Economic Partnership Agreement, which entered into force in 2008. South Korea was the Philippines' fourth major trading partner last year. It's the Philippines' eighth export market and second import supplier. South African Airways workers embarked on an indefinite strike for higher wages and against the national carrier's overhaul plan, forcing the cash-strapped airline to ground hundreds of flights. Take a look.
South African Airways said Wednesday it was cancelling all its flights as thousands of workers vowed to press ahead with an indefinite strike after the troubled national carrier announced a major retrenchment plan. The airline has cancelled nearly all its domestic, regional and international flights scheduled for Friday and Saturday. Unions vowed their members would forge ahead with the strike, calling for a 3-year guarantee of job security and an 8% wage hike across the board.
On a lighter note, in Canada, our kababayans will feel closer to home when they try out Vancouver's Filipino jeepney food truck named Shameless Buns. The foundation of these Shameless Buns name branding and menu is the Pandesal. EBC's Kathleen Cruz is on that story for us.
Do you like pandesal, adobo, or tocino, but with a twist? Shameless Buns here in Vancouver got you covered. Vancouver's funkiest food jeepney is serving Vancouverites a little taste of Filipino. It may not be your typical Filipino food. That is no problem because the inspiration is still Filipino cuisine.
So Shameless Buns is a food truck that's all about showcasing Filipino flavors and Filipino food in a really different way than most people probably have experienced with Filipino food before. So we started the business because me personally, being a non-Filipino, fell in love with the cuisine. We created it because we wanted to take this cuisine that, in our opinion, is really misrepresented, that not a lot of people are familiar with, and make it kind of cool and make it kind of fun and funky. We saw that there was a real kind of void in Vancouver for this type of Filipino food.
This food truck is a breath of fresh taste. Here is Matt to explain more about their specialties and how they elevated and kind of tried to westernize the cuisine.
So our most popular dish would be our adobo fries. So it's our chicken adobo. It's essentially one of the national dishes of the Philippines. We braise our chicken adobo for hours and hours until it's literally falling apart. So I describe it to people as almost like a play on pulled chicken. So we take our fries, and I have to note our fries are dusted with the sinigang seasoning. Sinigang is a tamarind-based soup from the Philippines, super popular, very sour, and so our fries almost taste like salt and vinegar chips. We do a lot of stuff with longanisa, so Filipino sausage. You can get it in a sandwich, or you can get it over our fries. With the dish is called the sausage party, so it's basically breakfast on fries. Spam fries are literally as they sound. They are strips of spam cut up into fry formation and deep fried. We have a bunch of dipping sauces, including our garlic calamansi aioli, our sriracha mayo, our smoky maple mayo, and our spicy Filipino vinegar, plus our homemade banana ketchup that we do as well.
Are you hungry yet? There is more that Shameless Bun offers that can also cater vegetarians, all for a quick grab.
So what we came up with was a jackfruit coconut adobo. So what we do is we braise our jackfruit in coconut milk, soy sauce, vinegar, bay leaves, garlic, and there's just this beautiful creamy, tangy. We use pandesal. So as you know, pandesal is the beloved bun of the Philippines, hence why we're called Shameless Buns. Really soft and light and airy. We have the happy ending, which contains a lot of cool Filipino ingredients: homemade ube jam, coconut macapuno, coconut jam, condensed milk, Milo for like a little nostalgic kick.
The creativity that Matt and his girlfriend had put in to fully conceptualize Shameless Bun menu has created a lot of noise, not only among those who haven't tried Filipino food, but most especially to the Filipino community.
I can proudly say that Filipino people love our food. Some of the older generation is sometimes a bit skeptical. They don't see rice on the truck, they don't see lumpia, they don't see pancit, but when they try our food, their minds are usually blown. They absolutely love it.
From Vancouver, Canada, Kathleen Cruz, Eagle News, 1 with 25.
Walking, talking holograms have been a staple of sci-fi films since Princess Leia was magically brought to life in Star Wars. Now, scientists in Britain say they can make even more realistic 3D versions. A butterfly, a globe, an emoji, which can be seen with the naked eye, heard and even felt without the need for any virtual reality systems. Take a look. Eagle News, we'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Tungkulin na MTRCV ang mag-provide na
The members of the Iglesia Ni Cristo in Kuala Lumpur conducted a cleanup drive. Here's Ruby Tinawin, who's at the scene. Ruby?
Members of the Iglesia Ni Cristo here in the District of Malaysia have been mobilized to participate in a cleanup activity here in Pantaybagan, Pinang Beach, Port Dickson. Organized through the leadership of the District Supervising Minister, Brother Alan King Mercado, the one-day volunteer event attracts the participation of both young and adult members of the Iglesia Ni Cristo, as well as the general public.
I am Jagdish from India. Kim is invited for this event. I am very happy to this environment saving activity to collect the garbages from near beaches for save the environment of my plastics and others.
Hi, my name is Darid Hazing Hashim. I'm from Malaysia. I'm Malay nationality. So today is a cause that honestly is something for eco-friendly that people need to do for our global term, and it's actually a great cause because due to a lot of people throwing plastics everywhere and not putting it in a proper place, it's not good, you know.
I think it's a good activity because it's not just good for everyone but for ourselves as well, because we also travel to the beach and then it's also not nice if we see the rubbish. Yeah, so I think it should be more often, like not just from the church but from everywhere else. They can do this like every week, to clean up the trash.
Plastic bottles, bottle caps, cigarette butts, and other non-biodegradable items were collected during the cleanup. And while the public may condemn this act of loitering, concern is still on the rise for the lack of disciplines among us.
I am Dan. I'm Iglesia Ni Cristo. I'm so happy to see us with the God blessing. We have this so united in this ocean, and so thank you for the spiritual blessing that we receive, and especially our brother Eduardo Manalo, and give us this great evangelical mission for us, this kind of activity for us to continue fulfilling and help the Malaysia, to help the government. Thank you all.
Hi, I am Brother Alvin Alipio, Assisting Head Deacon in the local congregation of Bangsar. And we are here in Port Dickson along with the brethren in the local to participate in our church activities as part of our INC Giving Project. So we are here in Port Dickson doing a coastal cleanup drive as part of our community social responsibility to give back to the neighborhood and to our fellow men here in Malaysia, and most especially to share to them our faith. And we would like to give our thanks to our Executive Minister, Brother Eduardo V. Manalo, in launching this kind of activity for us to be more active in the activities in the Christian Family Organization. And we would like to greet our Executive Minister a happy birthday po. We love you very much po.
Hi, my name is Brother Chad Bustamante, a evangelical worker assigned in Kuala Lumpur district of Malaysia. We just finished our coastal cleanup drive of Port Dickson in Malaysia. We like to let everyone know that we all care about the environment and are always united in the works of the church.
The coastal cleanup is yet another act of kindness of the Iglesia Ni Cristo members, whose aim is to create awareness on the importance of preserving and maintaining a clean environment for the sake of the future generation.
Napakasaya at galak na galak ang mga kapatid sapagkat napatutunayan po nila ang kanilang pakikipagkaisa sa ating pong tagapamahalang pangkalahatan sa pangangalaga sa ating kapaligiran. Tulong na rin po natin ito sa komunidad, sa iba't ibang panig ng daigdig, katulad po dito sa Port Dickson, para nang sa ganun, maipakita rin po natin na ang Iglesia ni Cristo ay kaisa sa lahat ng kilusan at aktibidad ng pamahalaang lungsod dito po sa Malaysia.
In union with the call of the church administration that in every opportune time that we do good to our fellow men, which is the Church of Christ had been doing even now that the locals in Kuala Lumpur area have gathered themselves together to conduct this coastal cleanup drive here at Port Dickson. This is to help the community to maintain cleanliness of the coast along this side of Kuala Lumpur or Malaysia, and also to continue on with the union that all members of the Church of Christ should adhere to and observe. And this is also one of the gifts of members of the Church of Christ in remembrance of the birth anniversary of Brother Eduardo V. Manalo. So with all the brethren who are joining us today, let us keep up the good work and let's keep on uniting with the aim and purpose of the church administration.
Show that we care. If not us, then who? If not now, then when? Reporting from Port Dickson, Malaysia, this is Ruby Tinawin and I am one with 25.
The Florida Department of Health warns about mosquito-borne diseases and gives tips on how to prevent them. Melissa Allen with this story.
The state of Florida, just about as ubiquitous as palm trees and sunshine, are the mosquitoes. With their thin and fragile appearance, it's uncanny that these tiny creatures are considered the world's deadliest animals. That's because these blood-sucking insects have the ability to carry and transmit disease to both animals and people. According to the World Health Organization, mosquitoes cause millions of human deaths each year. Mosquito-borne diseases typically found in Florida include West Nile virus disease, Eastern equine encephalitis, and St. Louis encephalitis. ABC spoke with the Florida Department of Health in Polk County about their arbovirus surveillance program. Dr. Liza Koblalsing is a biological scientist in their epidemiology department.
We examine the human side of surveillance, but in conjunction with human diseases, we're cognizant of what is going on in the arboviruses in the mosquito population and in what we call sentinel chickens. And so when there's a 10% increase in our sentinel chicken flock, that is one of the parameters to issue the advisory.
So far in 2019, the Florida Department of Health has issued almost 24 mosquito-borne illness alerts and advisories in several counties across the state, 5 of which were issued in the month of October alone. In their efforts to protect the public from mosquito-borne disease, the Florida Department of Health also works in conjunction with the county's mosquito control unit.
They are the experts on mosquito surveillance, and we keep in very close communication with them, and they let us know where we're seeing increased numbers of mosquitoes carrying certain viruses, certain arboviruses within our counties.
Applying insect repellent is one of the recommended methods of protection against mosquito bites. Dr. Koblalsing gave some tips on what to look for in an effective repellent.
It should contain at least 30% DEET. So you also want to keep in mind the length of time that you spend outdoors. So the longer that you're outside, you want to have a compound with at least that 30%, and the more of DEET that's in the product will provide coverage for a longer period of time.
For babies and small children, however, the guidelines on insect repellent are different.
Mosquito repellent can be used in children, however, you do not want to use it in children under the age of 2 months. And there's another type of mosquito repellent, it's called oil of lemon eucalyptus. You do not want to use that in children under the age of 3. And there's another compound called picaridin, which is also used for arbovirus protection as well, and can be used against ticks and other arboviruses, but that's something that should not be applied directly to the skin, so that you apply those things to your clothing, to camping equipment even, your shoes, but not ever directly onto your skin.
Aside from applying insect repellent, there are other things that people can do to deter mosquito bites.
What we call cover and drain. So covering yourself is one part of the cover, but you also want to make sure there's no standing water around your house. So anything that collects water, whether it's buckets or drums or toys or flower pots, anything that can collect water.
According to the CDC, 2019 was a record-breaking year for the Eastern equine encephalitis virus. Despite Florida's warm climate and thriving mosquito population, none of the 35 human cases were reported in the state. Signing off from the Florida Department of Health in Polk County, I'm Melissa Allen, and always 1 with 25.
Eagle News will be right back. Stay tuned.
Hey there, Arnie Aquino here at Hatley Castle, one of the filming locations for the X-Men series. Don't forget to tune in to Digital Nest only on Net 25.
Thank you, Anthony. Toronto fans remain hopeful about their NBA champion team. Here's Adrian Pangalinan.
The defending champions enter Wednesday night's contest as the 5th best team in the Eastern Conference. With a 4-2 record, the fans are proud of the team's valiant efforts. They nearly overcame a 26-point deficit before falling short to the Milwaukee Bucks. They look to get back on the winning track as they take on a young and talented Sacramento Kings squad at home, where they remain undefeated.
The Raptors improved their record by overpowering the Kings with a balanced contribution from key players. Pascal Siakam scored 23 points along with 13 rebounds. Kyle Lowry had 24 points, and Serge Ibaka chipped in with 21 points off the bench. Nick Nurse commented on his team's play.
But I thought everybody was into what we call next action basketball tonight. When it didn't look good, boom, it was to mark and to the other side and to the next screen and roll, and that didn't look good, boom, it was to the other side, and that's a little bit more like it for us offensively.
With the continued contributions of the young players on the roster, the team is poised to make another run to the playoffs. It will be interesting to see just how far this roster can go as the season plays out. They'll face another great test now that they head out west against some familiar foes.
This will be no easy task for the reigning NBA champions before they head out west for their 5-game road trip. They look to take on the Pelicans, Lakers, Clippers, Trailblazers before ending off in Dallas to face the Mavericks. Last season, the team won 22 out of 30 contests against Western Conference opponents, and it will take a tremendous effort to top that record. For more NBA coverage, tune in to EBCSI for more stories and highlights around the sports world. From Scotiabank Arena, I'm Adrian Pangalinan, Eagle News, 1 with 25.
Thank you, Adrian. Our EBC correspondent Michael Hudson takes us through an experience you just might fall for. Let's dive on in. Michael?
How you doing, everybody? Michael with Eagle Sports here. I'm here at Upolu Airport in beautiful Big Island, Hawaii. Today, I'm going to be going skydiving. I want to take you guys on a journey with me because this is my first time, and I want to show you how fun and exciting this extreme sport is. Let's go check it out. you didn't know so already, skydiving can be one of the most terrifying things you can do in your life. I mean, you're going up 10,000 feet in the air, jumping off a plane, and parachuting to the ground. So I went to one of the skydiving firms on the island called BIG Skydiving. I had the pleasure of jumping with Kwa and JR, who are the owners of the company, and they have over 5,000 jumps on their resume. Leading up to the jump, we sign waiver forms and are given specific instructions on how to jump, how to position our bodies, and also the equipment checks. Hey guys, so I'm all strapped up, went through the class, and now we're about to go jump. Let's do it.
Sounds good. I'm ready, baby. I'm ready. Let's do it.
After skydiving for the first time, I was convinced that this activity is exhilarating, it's exciting, and it can be so much fun. I mean, you're up in the air peacefully, just looking around, beautiful sights around you, and it's something that you can never experience again.
All right, Michael. First jump in the books of the Big Island, Hawaii. Not too bad.
Yes, sir. Oh, it was amazing. Crazy out-of-body experience, life-changing. It's amazing.
It's crazy. Could you do it again?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Mahalo, Krishna aloha.
Oh my gosh, guys, that was incredible. Out-of-body experience, life-changing experience. I'm so happy I was able to do it. So reporting from Big Island, Hawaii at Upolu Airport, I'm Michael Hudson, and I'm 1 with 25.
And finally in our news, famously known as the Kingdom of Dolls, Japan's time-honored cultural craft comes to Bahrain in an exhibition of the finest dolls of traditional performing arts as well as regional and creative pieces. Our EBC correspondent Lorlyn Kalimlim reports from Bahrain.
We're here at Bahrain National Museum Hall 8, where the Embassy of Japan in Bahrain, in coordination with Bahrain Authority for Culture and Antiquities, are holding the Dolls of Japan exhibition. The Dolls of Japan exhibition at Bahrain National Museum Hall 8, which already started from 13th October and will last until the 13th of November 2019, celebrates Japan's ancient tradition of fine doll making. Tourists would definitely enjoy their unique and respected dolls which represent Japanese culture and tradition. This month-long exposition will impart knowledge to different nationalities on how Japanese people lived from ancient to modern times. These dolls do not only portray their real life, but also their folklores, in addition to serving as a gift to loved ones, either in formal occasions or in children's festivals. Doll making has been a traditional craft in Japan, also known as Kingdom of Dolls, from Jomon period, when dogu humanoid figures were made, up to Edo period, where many new types of dolls were invented.
I think it was a very good introduction and very traditional. And actually, as a Japanese, I didn't know such a lot of the collection of the dolls in the history. So it's really nice, good feeling to see all of the things.
We just visit Bahrain Museum, and then I saw, yun nga, itong the dolls of Japan. Well, I really admire the way that they making the dolls. Admire lang ako sa mga ano nila, and then the culture. We plan to visit also Japan soon. Kung ano yung mapag-aralan natin, then siguro someday makapagsuot din ng mga traditional clothes nila. So yun lang.
Sometimes seeing artifacts with your own eyes is more appreciative than learning from textbooks. With the help of this doll exhibition, people learned more about Japan, not only their history, but also their modern-day lifestyle. From Bahrain, this is Lorlyn Kalimlim, your Eagle News correspondent, and I'm Juan with 25.
And that's it for tonight's broadcast. I'm Alma Angeles, always one with 25. Good night.